Hey guys, it is MattySports bringing my Week 4 predictions of the 2015 college football season. Last week in Week 3, I went even and went 5-5 because of some very unexpected upsets. First off, Florida State took care of Boston College. Florida State's defense was really great, but their offense couldn't really get going against Boston College. North Carolina beat Illinois. Georgia Tech had a late rally against Notre Dame but fell a bit short, so Notre Dame, I was surprised they won that. So Notre Dame looks like they are definitely not a pretender, and they are a definite competitor for the college football playoff. Miami held off a very impressive Nebraska comeback in the fourth quarter, took it to overtime, but Miami was able to hold them off in overtime. LSU took care of Auburn. Florida beat Kentucky, which was a pretty impressive win for me on the road. Stanford upset USC at USC. That was definitely the big upset of the week, and I really did not expect that, especially after how Stanford played in Week 1. UCLA held off BYU, and even though BYU lost, they only lost by 1 point. They definitely looked really impressive, so I'm going to have to keep my eye out for BYU for the rest of the season. Duke could not get the upset for me. Northwestern won at Duke, so that means my upset record is at 2-1. And finally, Ole Miss beat Alabama on the road. So Ole Miss has beaten Alabama for 2 consecutive weeks. So that was definitely impressive. But now we're on to Week 4. We have 10 more games. The first one is number 8 LSU at Syracuse. Both these teams are undefeated. Even though Syracuse is at home, LSU is personally my pick to win the SEC West. So I'll take LSU on the road. Next, we have an ACC Coastal matchup of number 20 Georgia Tech at Duke. Both of these teams are coming off of a loss. Duke is at home, but after I saw how Georgia Tech was almost able to come back against Notre Dame, I'm going to have to pick the Yellow Jackets to beat the Blue Devils. Next, we have number 22 BYU at Michigan. Now, probably if I didn't see how BYU played, I would have picked Michigan for this, but after seeing BYU, even with the backup quarterback that they have, they are definitely an impressive team, so I think they will go on the road and defeat Michigan. Next, you have a Big Ten, or no, excuse me, not a Big Ten, but a non-conference matchup of Maryland at West Virginia. Maryland coming off a win against South Florida. West Virginia looks to have been so far a pretty consistent team this year. They are at Morgantown at home, so I will take the Mountaineers to beat the Terrapins. Next, we have a personal favorite game of mine, the Tennessee Volunteers at the Florida Gators. Both these teams fighting to win the SEC East. Of course, they have to get through Georgia first if they want to do that. Tennessee, coming off that loss to Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, and Florida is still undefeated, and beating Kentucky last week was pretty impressive for me. But I'm going to have to stick with Tennessee because I think Tennessee is overall the better football team. I still don't think Florida has truly been tested yet, so we'll see what happens with that game. Next, we have a Big 12 matchup of number 3 TCU at Texas Tech. Both of these Texas schools are undefeated. Texas Tech came off a pretty impressive win against Arkansas last week, which I honestly thought Arkansas would have won that game. And TCU, they still haven't really been that impressive to me. I don't think they're a top 5 team right now, but they're still ranked number 3. They haven't really impressed me in terms of how they've been playing against their opponents. But even so, I'm still going to have to take TCU on the road. Next, we have a Pac-12 match with number 18 Utah at number 13 Oregon. Oregon lost to Michigan State a couple weeks ago, and Utah so far has had a pretty good season, but I will take the Oregon Ducks to win at home. Next, you have another Pac-12 match of number 19 USC at Arizona State. USC coming off of a huge upset loss at home. Now, this is a pretty tough game for me to pick. I basically kind of flipped a coin on this. Both these teams are high contenders with UCLA for the Pac-12 South. And even though Arizona State's at home, I've always liked Arizona State in the Pac-12 South. I'm going to have to pick USC to win this game on the road. Next, we have another upset game, and I picked this team before in an upset special. I'm going to pick them again, and it is number 25 Missouri at Kentucky, and I will take the Kentucky Wildcats at home to win. Missouri has not looked that impressive to me. They're barely still in the top 25. They barely beat a UConn team, which in my opinion is not that impressive. In Kentucky, even though they lost last week to Florida, I still think they are a sleeper team in the SEC East, and they definitely still have a shot, so I will take Kentucky at home. And finally, we have the game of the week where College Game Day will be going to, and it is another Pac-12 game of number 9 UCLA at number 16 Arizona. This is a pretty easy game for me to pick. I'm going to pick UCLA. Even though they barely came off a win against BYU, I think BYU has definitely been an impressive team this year. And Arizona, from who they played, they haven't looked really impressive for me. Even though Arizona's at home, And they did upset Oregon once last year, so they're not afraid of playing against big quality teams. I just think UCLA has played overall more impressive than Arizona, so I will take the Bruins to win. Anyway, guys, that's been it for this week's video. Let me know what you guys think of the games I picked, any of the games I missed, stuff like that. Anyway, guys, this has been Matty Sports, and I'll see you guys next week for Week 5.